أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه، وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أصب إليهن وأكن من الجاهلين. فاستجاب له ربه فصرف عنه كيدهن إنه هو السميع العليم. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالإمام الكاظم عليه السلام. مؤمنين مؤمنات, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Condolences on the martyrdom anniversary of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the opportunity to be amongst his zuwar, those who visit him in this dunya, and his followers, the Shia of the Imam and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, and grant us their intercession in the hereafter, insha'Allah. One of the distinct characteristics about the life of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam is the fact that the Imam was put in prison by the tyrant of his time, Al-Rashid alayhi la'inullah. He not only put the Imam in prison, but the way he took him from Medina to initially the prison in Basra and eventually the prison in Baghdad was like a criminal. They would put them in shackles and chains, where typically they would take a war criminal in such a manner. And this is how they treated the Imam from the children of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the point that he himself was heard saying, as he came to the shrine of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Al-Rashid himself, he said, Ya Rasulullah, forgive me, I'm going to do something that is not going to make you happy. You know, to that, knowing what he's about to do is an evil act, yet he goes on and does it. This perhaps for us is a good lesson and reflection on the fact that no matter how difficult things become and how challenging times could be, we should focus on our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making sure that we're pleasing God and not ever questioning His decree. Looking at the positive side, Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, not only did he not complain about prison, every average person, every normal person would say, why? Not only did he not complain about the prison, but he actually found a reason to thank God for the prison. فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ, he says. He says, oh Lord, you knew how much I love being in a seclusion to worship you. And therefore, and you have granted me that state of seclusion to worship you, therefore فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ. All praise belongs to you. This is him seeing the positive of what he is going through, despite the fact that there are definitely a lot of challenges with it, to the point that some narrate that, especially the last one. Now he was taken into 3 different prisons before he ended up in the prison of the cursed Sindi ibn Shaykh, who actually eventually executed the order of poisoning the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayh. In some of the basically guards of the prison guards, they put the Imam in such difficulty that they say he was only allowed to go for tahur, for his, basically renewing his wudu, going to that is the only time he was allowed out. Nobody was allowed in to that degree. Yet the Imam looks at the positive side of it, that he has the opportunity to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, فَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ. For those who are in challenges and difficulties, again, we remember Ahlul Bayt to live like them, and eventually pray and hope that one day we die like them. Allahumma ahyini hayata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa amitni mamata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Our goal in remembering them is not just to remember what they did in Jahiliyyah, remember what they call amjad, the greatness of their ancestors or their leaders and so on. That's not our goal. Our goal, in fact, the purpose of the Prophet and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, appointment and their struggles, is hidayah, to guide the people, to teach the people, to purify the people. يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. The purpose is to teach, the purpose is to purify. So when we gather to remember them, the goal should be to learn, purify, and get guidance through them. That should be our goal. Not simply just gather and perhaps for some maybe culture, for some might be specifically for Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, might be gaining hawa'ij, getting what you need, because he is known as Bab al-Hawa'ij. So people, they do nadhr, vow to God that I will feed people in the name of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, and ask God for my hajat, and my hajat would be granted. All that is well and good, nothing wrong with doing that. But that is not the purpose of the Imam. The Imam was not, it's just like looking at the Imam of our time, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. It is there in the riwayat that if you have difficulty, turn to him. This call of Ya Sahib al-Zaman, don't ever underestimate it. If the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi has nadra, as we say, just looks towards you and prays for us, وَهَبْ لَنَا رَأْفَتَهُ وَرَحْمَتَهُ وَدُعَاءَهُ وَخَيْرًا, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to grant us the dua of the Imam of our time, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. So the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi can certainly help the people, and we have numerous examples and stories of the Imam helping people in difficulty. But that's not why God appointed the Imam. And some may question that, when somebody mentions the story of the Imam coming to the aid of some people in difficulty or in desperate situations, we have some who start questioning, what is this what the Imam is for, and these things are fabrications, and the list goes on. No, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt have kindness, and at times they help people, but that's not their purpose. That is not why God appointed them. That is not why God granted them powers. That is not why God granted them certain what we call karamat, miracles, not for a purpose of prophethood, but miracles. Yes, they have many. In fact, when we look at the life of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, there is a very famous story which has resemblance to the story of Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam. They share the name. Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam had a staff. When he would throw his staff on the ground, it would turn into a snake, a serpent, a huge snake. And it would be so real that was capable of eating and digesting, to the point that when it ate and digested, it went back to within the body of the staff. It was no longer something that they could get out of it. And that's why magicians at the time of Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam, they immediately accepted him as a prophet of God because they recognized his power. They had very strong magic. In fact, Quran says they had 3 levels of magic. One of them is they affected the visions of the people. A lot of the magicians, when they do tricks, they're called tricks because they basically they lay on people's vision and what you can see and what you cannot see, and therefore they trick the people. And so Quran says Saharu a'yun an-nas, they affected the vision of the people. That's one. Another level is that they actually did what is referred to as, and the third one is وَجَاءُوا بِسِحْرٍ عَظِيمٍ. This sihr azim, our scholars, they based on some narrations, they say this is referring to the involvement of some level of paranatural, something that's beyond natural, that could be the use of the power of the ruh, because the ruh has powers, energy, certain energy, power, whatever you may call it. And there are some who control their spirit or their ruh within them to a point that they have some level of control on that energy. There are some who I have not witnessed with my eyes, but I know somebody who witnessed with his eyes, somebody who could, with looking at something, make it move. Powers. You may say, where? Or the other suggestion is it could be the work of jinn. As Muslims, we believe that there is a being other than insan and other than malaika, other than humans and the angels, and it's referred to as jinn. And we have a chapter in the Quran about it, and many references in the Holy Quran about jinn, and how some of them are believers, some of them are wrongdoers, and some people, in fact some of them are used by the people. Quran has reference to that, to the point that some of them come and build structures for Nabiullah Sulaiman ala nabina wa alayhi salam. Therefore, at that level of sihrun azim, they did something beyond what humans can do. the Sahara, the magicians. However, with all their powers, when they realized that they could not come close to what Musa alayhi salam brought, they submitted. They in fact they went into sujood, immediately went into sujood, and they said, we believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun ala nabina wa alayhi salam. Nabiullah Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, in a gathering that was arranged by one of the enemies of God and enemies of Ahlul Bayt and the servants of Harun, who was always against this particular individual, Yahya al-Barmaki, was always against the family of Ahlul Bayt, specifically the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. In any case, arranged a gathering and brought a very powerful magician at his time. You see the similarity, magicians are brought to what? Humiliate the Imam, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. In the gathering, the magician, anytime the Imam would reach out to, they were serving food, would reach out to a piece of bread or something, that magician would cause it to move away from the Imam. He would somehow make it move away. Now what he used, Allahu A'lam. Did he use jinn? Did he use certain powers that he had gained? Or some tricks? Allahu A'lam. Nevertheless, the Imam warned him. When he realized what's going on, the Imam warned him. And eventually the Imam pointed at a drawing of a lion on the curtain. There was a curtain there that had a drawing of a lion. He pointed towards it and said, Ya Asad Allah, khud adu Allah. Oh, the lion of God, take the enemy of God. And immediately it became a huge beast that swallowed that magician immediately, to the point that it went back to the drawing. Now some might start questioning, we have people, whenever it comes to Ahlul Bayt, everything is deniable, questionable / deniable, anything. You tell them a staff became a snake, it went and swallowed all these other things that the magicians made. Ja'u bisihrin azim. Quran refers to it as a great magic. In other words, it wasn't a small show that they put together. It was a huge thing. And that snake swallowed every one of those and came back in the hand of Musa alayhi salam, did not add an inch to itself. And that's possible. Yet a lion, a drawn lion on the curtain for Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam to come out and swallow the magician, it's impossible. How could that be possible? This is because we have not recognized the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. We have not recognized the level and the status of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. Anybody who questions them. Harun and his people, the narration says that they fainted eventually when they were brought back, because they thought they were next. They are the enemies of the Imam. If he made the lion to swallow the magician, who deserves it next? Yahya and Harun. Yahya al-Barmaki and Harun al-Rashid. They deserve it. However, the Imam spared them. The Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, for a wisdom, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them wisdom. A system has to go on for humanity to mature. The humanity was not ready for the Imams of Ahlul Bayt to lead. Imam Amirul Mu'mineen was struck and killed. Despite his justice, despite his knowledge, despite his goodness, was struck and killed. Imam Hassan alayhi salam was poisoned. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the massacre and the event of Ashura. So the humanity was not ready. There is no point taking this leader when another leader is going to come. For the Imam, that was not the point. The point was that do not challenge the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. These are the Imams. If you're mocking the Imam with an act of a magician, you'll see things that are beyond any magician. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him, to the point that he orders. It's not like the staff of Musa alayhi salam were? Musa alayhi salam was granted that by God. He threw it and was fearful of it. فَلَمَّا رَآهَا كَأَنَّهَا جَانٌّ. What happened to him? وَلَّا مُدْبِرًا. Musa alayhi salam went running, was fearful of it. Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam orders that lion to become the beast that swallows that enemy of God. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt were the wasila for the Anbiya. Anbiya'ullah. In the hadith we have that even Imam Musa Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam, when he wanted to gain peace and tranquility from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he asked him by the Ahlul Bayt salawatu wassalamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them the status and the proofs so that we can gain guidance through them. The goal again of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt is guidance for humanity. The Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, his concern for the people is to guide the people, not to lead the people regardless. Amir al-Mu'mineen, same thing. He says to the people, it's not about the leadership. That means nothing to them, because their kingdom is in Akhirah. For them, it is here. Our goal as followers and lovers of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een should be to gather to gain guidance through them. All praise and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for such a wonderful gathering in this occasion in the name of Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam. The question is, how much of this gathering are we going to benefit? Is it going to stay here, the blessings, or are we going to take it with us? The Imams of Ahlul Bayt, their memory is ibadah. Their mentioning their names is ibadah. Sharing their words is ibadah. All of this is act of worship. And these acts of worship bring blessings to the gathering that we are mentioning them, sharing their words. That's all beautiful. It's ibadah. The gathering is blessed for sure. Be thankful to God and be proud of yourself to have made it to the majlis of the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, because this is a majlis filled with blessings. Filled. We cannot even explain it or describe it. Malaika see these majalis as we see the shining stars in the sky. They look at us from the heavens and they see our gatherings as a star. When some of the malaika who are with us return to the heavens, when they are with other malaika, they ask them, the other malaika ask them, you have a scent that we are not familiar with. Where were you? They tell them, we were in the majalis of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Then they ask to find these places, even though people have dispersed. They say, we'll go and sit where people were sitting and gain blessings from that majlis. The question is, such a beautiful gathering that the malaika would want to be a part of. Can we take some of those blessings home with us? That's the question. How can we take those blessings with us? How can I make sure that tonight I take to my home, in the time of idol worshippers, I want us to, and please bear with me, I was told I have 2 hours. Is that correct? No, I won't keep you that long. In the time of the idolaters, idol worshippers, they used to bring a piece of the idol or a smaller version of the idol, the big idol that they worship, to their homes. They used to do that. Many examples in the history, whether it be the idols of Quraysh, Hubal and so on, or Lat and Uzza and Manat, all these idols of Quraysh that Quran gives us some reference to, or the idols of the time of Nabiullah Ibrahim ala nabina wa alayhi salam that he destroyed, and other idols. I started with the story of Nabiullah Yusuf ala nabina wa alayhi salam. They used to bring the smaller version of the bigger gods, those gods that they worship, into their homes. To what? To protect them, to give them blessings. This is what they did. In fact, some of you may not know that the tradition of bringing a tree or a small tree of the bigger cedar tree is a tradition of idolaters. Imam Ali alayhi salam narrates about a people known as Ashabul Ras. People asked him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, who are Ashabul Ras? He told them of a story of a people who lived in 12 villages, and in their main village, the biggest village, they had a big tree. They worshipped it. It was their source of goodness to them. These things are, to them, they were perhaps manifestation of God. And so in order for them to gain blessings, they brought small pieces of this tree into their villages and homes for blessings. And some of us blindly follow the tradition of idolaters, including our Christian brothers. Not knowingly, they bring these idols to their homes, and then somehow they want to link it to the birth of Isa alayhi salam, which has no relationship. Even if you ask any priest, they would not be able to give you any relationship. And they might say, okay, the star at the top of the tree is the star that appeared in the sky when Isa alayhi salam was born, and but there's absolutely no reference why that tree is related. In any case, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because us humans recognize the fact that sometimes our lives need, in fact it's always, but sometimes we feel the lacking of some spirituality and blessings in our lives, in our homes. Some of us sometimes we feel like our homes are not peaceful, are lacking peace. Some of us have family issues, some of us have children issues, some of us have health issues, different problems that may occur. People go through trouble in life, through problems in life. This is how it works. And part of the test is who do you turn to? As believers, we turn to God. And those who turn to God, they realize that there are ways of bringing blessings to their homes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed the most powerful prayers, which are what? Congregation, jama'ah. Can you compare jama'ah to furada? Never. Tonight some of you could participate in a jama'ah that had more than 10 people in it. In a jama'ah that you have more than 10 people in it, no one, not even the angels of God, can record the blessings of that jama'ah and the rewards of it. Not even the angels. This is something that we cannot comprehend. Angels, the number of angels are more than the number of sand in the deserts and drops of water in the oceans. More. If you put for every drop of water in the ocean and for every grain of sand, grain, would you say grain? For sand? For every one of those, if you put an angel, you still have not accounted for all the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. More than that. Even if all the stars were to be represented, these angels are the protectors that God has put all over the universe. All of them together could not record the rewards of a rak'ah of jama'ah when the congregation is more than 10 people. Do you understand the blessings there? Now question that kind of blessing in a jama'ah. The blessings of the majlis that even the angels envy and would love to be a part of. يغبطون, not in a negative envy. They would love to be a part of. Such blessings, how can I take it home? Is there a way of taking it home? Or carrying it with me in my life? Some people, they think it is simply you write some things, you put it on your arm, you know, the bands around your arm, or in your ring, or in a necklace, you put some writings, and that's it for us. Though ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are powerful, and some of these prayers and supplications and prayers for protection, some of them are powerful, but that is not how you take those blessings to your home or carry them in your life. The way we can carry those blessings in our lives is by learning the lessons of the Prophet on Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een, and therefore our efforts to implement those, which is referred to as tazkiyah. So we learn and then we set up the efforts to implement those so that we beautify our lives. We purify our lives. Our lives would be empty of all the evil things. In this month, there's a beautiful dua which was recited after Salatul Jama'ah. Ya man arjuhu likulli khair. In there, we ask God for all the goodness of this world and all the goodness of the hereafter. جميع خير الدنيا وجميع خير الآخرة. All of it, this world and the hereafter, and they're together, by the way. Goodness of this world and goodness of the hereafter are linked. They are together. They cannot be separated. Another discussion, inshallah. And then we ask for protection of all the evils of this world and the evil of akhirah. جميع شر الدنيا وشر الآخرة. We ask for protection of that. You want protection, you want blessings, you want to carry the mercy and blessings from God, from these gatherings, from the jama'ah, into your lives. Learn the lessons that we learn from Ahlul Bayt and implement them. Try to start implementing them in your life. So tonight, I don't want to take so much more. I'll go through some lessons from Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam so that we can implement them and take away the blessings with us. Not keep it here, but take it with us in our lives, in our homes. Inshallah, all of us, myself, I'm the first addressee, and all of us, we try learning and implementing. The first one is through the name of the Imam, or the title, laqab of the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. The Imam was given the laqab Al-Kadhim. Al-Kadhim comes from kadhama, and it all, if you want to just translate it as one word, you might say suppress. To suppress something. To suppress was what? It is referring to the suppression of one's anger. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran praises the believers and gives one of their beautiful characteristics, which is وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. That when they have ghayz, a natural reaction of insan who is still stuck in his haywan shape, haywani characteristics, the animal characteristics, a human being who is still stuck in his or her animal characteristics, they have rage in them. If something angers them, if something upsets them, if something is disrespectful towards them, they have rage in them. But a believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them as ones who suppress that. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. And the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi was given the title of Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. So how does it work? How do we do it? I don't want to go into details. Refer to the stories in the lives of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, and you'll have the best examples and the best lessons and teachings. Very brief few highlights. One of them is to realize that when you have rage, it is from shaitan. Between your nafsul ammara, the nafs that is your number one enemy, and shaitan, your number one external enemy. So the number one internal enemy is our nafs. The number one external enemy, shaitan. Between the two of them, we become victims of our own rage. Because when one is in rage, who is the number one suffering individual? It's one himself, herself. When you have rage, when you're angry and you're raging, health-wise, it's the worst situation. Heartbeat and the blood pressure and all of these things. And I'll leave that to the doctors and experts. But we all know that it's not healthy. We all know that sometimes it causes serious problems, including heart attacks and so on. This is not the best for our own health. So who's my number one enemy between my own nafs and internally, and shaitan externally? Harming us. What happens as a result when we have rage? We set up a fire in our environment. It sometimes goes beyond two people. If you have rage with one person, it goes beyond that. Sometimes burns you first, that rage, and burns the second person there that you're having, the immediate person that you're having the problem with, and from there it starts burning the bigger circle. In families, the immediate people who are burning, children. If the husband and wife are having that kind of a situation, who is suffering? Circle, children. Only children? No. Sometimes parents from both sides are burning with them. Siblings burning with them. All sorts of problems, including rage that transfers in the families sometimes. And that leads to sinful behavior. Sinful behavior is harmful here before the hereafter. You start speaking ill behind someone's back because now you're not happy with them, you're upset. The father, the mother, mother-in-law, father-in-law, everybody now is making shaitan happy and ruining the health of insan. And I want you to consider insan as collectively being one. Imagine all of us insan are one, and all of shayateen are one, shaitan, represented in Iblis. And there's a battle between Iblis and Adam. Iblis says, I am better. God wanted to prove to all that Adam is better. The right choice was Adam for the khilafah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a battle, an ongoing battle. I want us to understand that. We are never ever left alone. He's always there for us. And He always wants to make sure He ruins insan. In the story of Nabiullah Yusuf ala nabina wa alayhi salam, I began with ayat from that surah. The relationship between the brothers was ruined, what was the reference? The reference, مِن بَعْدِ مَا نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ. Shaitan wanted to make sure he splits, divides. That is it, the plan. You know the divide and conquer principle? It is best applicable here. Shaitan, the more we're divided, the more he's happy. The more insan is divided and fighting and having problems, whether it be on a family level or on a universal level or a global level, whichever level you look at it. What's happening now in the Middle East and the bloodshed, wherever it's happening, or anywhere else in the world for that matter, any bloodshed, Shaitan is happy. This is why, by the way, one of the worst rituals that idol worshippers used to do, and it would bring the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to riwayat, based on the tafasir of the ayat, is when they used to sacrifice humans. Some suggestions go as far as suggesting that some of the original inhabitants of the Americas, you know, both North and South America, some of them were destroyed. I mean, there are conspiracies and stories and however, but why did God allow it? According to some historians, they used to do a lot of human sacrifice. As a result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says all of you should go. To that level that now you're slaughtering your own people for your idols. Insan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. So all of the bloodshed that's happening is making Shaitan extremely happy. It all starts with non-suppressed rage. Brings words that should not be said and then followed by actions that one could avoid. All of which is because we did not control and suppress our rage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises those who control it. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. And the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi is given this title for a reason. My dear brothers and sisters, none of the titles of the Imams are given by accident, like, okay, we just going to refer to him as Al-Hadi or Al-Kadhim or alayhim salam. No, every one of them, it is so that we can gain lessons from them. Imagine how far his kadhim of ghayl, his rage, of the rage of an insan, not his rage, he does not have it. He has tamed his nafs beyond having that rage that we would have. But that supposed rage that he does not allow and suppresses went as far as treating the people who are mistreating him in the prison, treating him in the worst possible ways you could imagine. Nowadays, a lot of the actions that were customs and cultures of the previous nations, humanity has matured enough not to allow those things. And when they do happen and people know about it, everybody becomes vocal, speaks about it. This is happening, whether it happened when at some point, I do remember in Iraq it was happening, and other nations when they face torture in prisons and so on, humanity today does not accept it. At that time there were no questions. There was no issue with any kind of torture or harm brought to prisoners. So imagine the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi is tortured on every level, including psychological torture. The famous story of bringing an adulteress to the prison of the Imam. How was his response? The response of the Imam. This is the amazing thing. Every single one of those who were in prison were so impressed by the Imam that not only did they not fulfilled the wish of Harun to kill the Imam, but asked Harun to remove him. Either you remove him or we're going to set him free. We can't keep him in prison anymore. This is a complete insan. That is what we lack today, a complete insan. And every one of us should learn from the Imam salawatullah wasalam alayhi. If we learn how to tame a relationship with a prison guard who has no restrictions and no limits to how they treat us, how we can control that relationship to make it a sweet, beautiful relationship, to the point that that prostitute that was brought becomes a worshipper and goes in sujood, is found in sujood, in prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The prison guards, one after the other, become lovers of the Imam, and therefore lovers of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. Only one who does not come from a legitimate birth and comes from the filthiest of families or no families, only that kind of a person is willing to harm the Imam. And this is where we say alayhi la'inullah, someone like Cindy, because no one else could do it. Just like in Karbala, no one else could go forward except the filthiest. And same thing in the prisons and how they dealt with the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. But again, back to our point before we go to the Masa'ib, if we look at the fact that the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi is dealing with prison guards who, some of you may be familiar with an experiment that was done many years ago. It's not allowed by law nowadays. It's not, such an experiment is not allowed in psychology. They took a bunch of students from university and they put some of them, everyone in the experiment knew that they are students. They're not criminals and nobody is law enforcement, or they knew that they are all students from the university. However, they put them each in certain responsibilities. Some of them were made to be prison guards and some of them were made to be prisoners. The experiment was on how humans behave in certain positions. And I want to come to this, inshallah, the second lesson, and we'll finish with this second lesson, inshallah. They split people. Some of them became prison guards. The result was very clear that humans would conform to what is expected of them in any position that you put them. Conformity is law that, or the principles that they were trying to establish. The issue there was some of them, the prison guards, knowing that these prisoners are innocent people, they're students of the university, they started treating them harshly, because as a prison guard you're meant to treat your prisoners harshly, because that's the support, that's how it's meant to be. And so that's what they were doing, putting difficult punishments even on them and so on. And again, this was done back in the day where a lot of these things were allowed or were not frowned upon badly. And the prisoners on the other side started acting like criminals somehow, trying to cheat the system in the prison and so on and so forth. The prison guards at the time of the Imam salawatullah wasalamu alayhi were actual prison guards. They were not fake prison guards. And they were at a time where there was absolutely no restriction on them. In fact, they would be praised if they killed the Imam. In fact, at some point it became the command of Harun to kill the Imam. And even then they could not do it. Because of what? Because وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, if you control yourself, you control the other party. When we have problems in business partnership, marriage relationships, siblings and families, whichever relationship you think about, when there are problems, we want to control the mind and the actions of the other party. That is our biggest problem. Instead of focusing on controlling myself, and this is what Quran teaches us, and this is what the Imam's title is all about. Focus on yourself. You have solved more than half of the problem. You might say, why more than half? Because we are humans, we affect each other. There is positive energy and negative energy that we can give out. How do we measure that? Allahu A'lam. Quran and Ahadith are clear about that. A person who's a blessed person brings about blessings to their gatherings. Even a mayyit whose ruh has departed their body is buried in a place, brings blessings to the amwat in that place, to the whole cemetery. We have numerous hadith about it. And therefore, if I control myself, I haven't just controlled half of the equation or solved half of it. I have controlled myself and helped the other party. I have already spread positivity and goodness, and therefore problem solved. This is how most of us could avoid issues and problems that are leading to so many problems, so many social issues in our society today. One of the biggest problems in our society today is broken families resulting from divorces, and the consequences of it are troubled children who end up eventually becoming in prisons and criminals and so on. These are statistics clearly out there. If you read about them, you'll realize that this is what it is. Troubled homes. You might say, okay, we didn't end up in divorce, but a troubled home is a bad environment. How do we solve it? وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. Simple. Learn from Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam. All of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. Nevertheless, especially Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, with his prison guard, with the prison guard, develops the best relationships. They become lovers of the Imam. It starts with a prisoner, he becomes a master to them. A master. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. The other point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts people in different positions as a test. One of our greatest scholars, the genius of his time, or in fact contemporary era, Sheikh Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, there's a recording of him. He was speaking to a group of scholars, students, and he was telling them, this recording is there, some of you may have heard it, amazing, and it's a lesson that many have in fact shared, and I know some who were present in that gathering. He says, has any of you received half of the dunya of Harun to comment on how Harun ended up being? Half of the dunya. Harun reached a very, very high position and power in this world, to the point that he would say to the clouds, go wherever you may, your tax is coming to me. اذهبي حيث شئت فإن خراجك إلي. That's where he reached. My dear brothers and sisters, every one of us gets tested in a position that they get put. Before we start saying, if I was in his position I would do different, fix purify yourself and make sure that you are the best that one could be in your position, in the position that God has given you, small or big. A member of a family, a worker, a manager, whatever it is, be the best that you could be. We speak about him. He could not give up on dunya being whatever it was for him, and went as far as commanding the killing of the Imam of his time and the grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he deep down was feeling apologetic about it, but he went ahead and he gave that order, and the Sindhi executed that order. Why? A failure in a test because of lack of purification, tazkiyah. We come, we learn, we purify through them, so that when we are put in a test, we don't fail our tests. That's the key. Because every one of us is put in a responsibility, in a test. Some of us might be a father in a family, a husband, a father. How do I treat my wife? How do I treat my children? That's my test. Some of us might be the wife. How patient am I with my children? Especially in today's world where individualism and materialism is becoming the norm. It's all about me. Even some of the exercises that are spreading nowadays, affirmations. I tell people, you want to do affirmations, do it with the name of God. God loves me. God provides for me. Not I am. You do I, you become Harun or Fir'aun. La'natullah alayhima. Or any of us. Wal'ayadu billah. No. Kill the I. I am a servant of God. Therefore, God loves me. God gives me. God. Don't become self-centered to the point that I'm looking at my responsibilities as a burden. God puts me in a position, it becomes a burden. My wife or my husband or my children are a burden. Why? Because I want to enjoy my life. What's my life? We are one. And our mothers taught us, and again I'm warning mu'mineen and mu'minat, because we are moving towards a very individualistic and very materialistic society unless we're consciously fighting that. Our parents, our ancestors, our mothers taught us that they sacrificed for us, for their children. Let's continue the tradition of sacrificing for them. If I'm put in a position of a manager, the best leaders, not just a manager, a leader, the best leaders are those who care for every single person that they're in charge of. There are different, in workplaces, there's a difference between a successful manager who is a leader and somebody who's put in that position but is not a real leader. Some of the characteristics of a good leader is that they care for others, not just me. So if you're put in a position, don't just look at yourself. Harun la'natullah alayhi, he says, فَإِنَّ خَرَاجُكِ إِلَيَّ, to me. It's all about me, he says. Whereas a believer wants and cares for others, wants for others, prays for others. Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, the mother of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, she taught us that. She said to Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he says, my dear mother, you prayed for everybody and you didn't pray for yourself. She says, yes, I heard it from my father Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Al-jar thumma ad-dar. Start with the neighbor, then the house. That is how Ahlul Bayt were. That is what they're teaching us. They care for others. The Imam could not be so good to people around him if he didn't genuinely care for them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the people are throwing stones at him. What does he say? Allahumma hdi qawmi. My people, we are one. فإنهم لا يعلمون. They don't know any better. These are Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. And we need to learn these lessons and implement them in our lives. Sacrifice for your children. A last word. Sacrifice your time. Don't focus on materialism and money. Sacrifice your time to bring your children to such gatherings and to schools that teach them Islamic ethics and morals and goodness, because otherwise they will be materialistic, individualistic, and you will be losing both in this world and in the hereafter. Imagine you, as an older person, I've done all I could for my children, provided so much, and now they don't know me. I hardly see them. They just went. That's the society. If we do not make sure we maintain our Islamic ethics and morals, we become victims in this society. In today's world, in any part of the world, in fact, it seems to be spreading. So please, my dear brothers and sisters, sacrifice, learn from the Imams and sacrifice, and bring your children, bring your families to those gatherings, teach them, bring them to classes, establish classes for them, teach them Quran. Make sure your children know and understand Quran. They read ayat and chapters of the Holy Quran and understand them. This is our responsibility. Providing games and phones for them is not something you will be questioned about on the Day of Judgment. Nobody will say to you, why didn't you get your children the latest game console and the latest phone? Nobody will ask you. But God will ask every one of us about whether or not we taught them Quran. This is their right. وَأَن يُؤَدِّبَهُ وَأَن يُعَلِّمَهُ الْقُرْآنِ. It is their right. Teach them. Teach them the words of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. I asked and encouraged mu'mineen to start a 40 hadith and teach your children. Let us make sure we do that and learn that it's not about just being at ease in comfort in this world. The Imams were never in comfort in this world. When the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi was about to be taken out of Medina, and they loved Medina because it was neighboring of the most blessed place, the shrine of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Khayrul Bashar. They recognized the blessings, so they wanted to be close there. Anytime they were in a position that they had to leave, they would go to the shrine of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and give a farewell, wada' to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They recognized that he is living. They did not consider him to be one who is gone and no memory of him or no power. The Imam says to his brother Ali ibn Ja'far alayhi salam, his brother from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says to him, Ya Ali, la budda min an tamdiya maqadirullah fiyya. The decree is going to happen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to me. And then he says, وَلِيَ بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ وَسَلَّمْ أُسْوَةٌ. My best example is Rasulullah, and also بأمير المؤمنين, and also Fatima and Hassan and Hussein alayhim salam. These are examples. They all struggled, and I am going to struggle. Don't look for comfort and ease in this world. This is not the place for it. This is a place of struggle for the sake of God, so that we establish our best places in the hereafter, inshallah. He says this is going to happen. The accursed Rashid comes to Medina. He says his words in the shrine of Rasulullah, that I'm going to do something that's not going to be pleasing to God and to you, Ya Rasulullah. And he commands that the Imam is put in chains. فأمر بالقبض على الإمام صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين صلى الله عليك يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله فأمر بالقبض على الإمام عليه السلام وكان قائما يصلي عند رأس النبي صلى الله عليه وآله. The Imam was praying at the shrine of Rasulullah by the head of Rasulullah. They commanded that he is captured during his salat فقطع عليه صلاته وحمل وهو يبكي ويقول إليك أشكو يا رسول الله وقيد وجعله في قبة وبعث به إلى البصرة. The Imam was shackled in chains. They put him and took him to prison in Basra. The Imam remained there in the prison of Isa ibn Ja'far. Isa could not hold the Imam much longer. He says to Harun, remove him from here. Everyone is becoming a lover of this man, of the Imam salawatullah alayhi. وأرسل إليه الرشيد يأمره بسفك دمه. Rashid orders him to kill the Imam. He says, I cannot do that. لما رأى من صلاحه وعبادته. He was removed to the other prison, Al-Fadl ibn al-Rabi', another station, another prison. And the Imam is saying, Ya Sayyidi, najjani min habs Harun, wa khallasni min yaday, ya mukhallis al-shajar min bayni ramlin wa tin. ويا مخلص اللبن من بين فرث ودم ويا مخلص الولد من بين مشيمة ورحم ويا مخلص الروح من بين الأحشاء والأمعاء خلصني من يدي هارون. The Imam was asking God, oh Allah, free me from this prison of Harun. What kind of freedom he's asking for? Perhaps some would think it is the freedom to be in this world once again roaming. The Imam was asking for something else. He considered the world that Harun and the likes are leading, the entire world, to be a prison. Therefore he's praying for him to return to his Lord. واستجاب له الدعاء. He ended up in the prison of Sindhi. In the prison of Sindhi, eventually the Imam was given the poison. It was put for the Imam in some dates. The Imam salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi told some who visited him during that time. One of the lovers of the Imam says, I paid so much, bribed the prison guards to visit the Imam salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. I asked him, Mata al-Faraj, when is your freedom and relief, ya ibn Rasulullah? He said, it is going to be on Friday on the bridge on Baghdad. This will be the time. Tell my lovers to be there. The Imam told him that, but did not tell him what kind of a meeting it will be. Suddenly, on that day, as the day came, some of the lovers of the Imam are waiting. They see some prison guards carrying a body. حاملين النعش يصيحون